They had 12 guns pointed at his head. His guard were dead. His empire was seconds from collapse. Dante Caruso, the most feared man in 3 countries, was finished. Then, silence. Asterisk. One movement. From the corner of the room. From the person nobody watched. From the woman serving their drinks. She didn't beg. She didn't freeze. She didn't pray. She picked up his gun. And she fired first. 3 gunmen down. 6 seconds. 1 waitress. They spent months planning that ambush. They forgot one thing. They never checked who was in the room. The most deadly person that night wasn't the Mafia boss. Wasn't the assassins. Wasn't the rival family. It was the woman. They never looked at twice. And she had been waiting her whole life for that moment. This is her story. And it will shake you to your core. Watch till the end, because the last line of this story will stay with you forever. The restaurant had been rented out for the night. Every table cleared except one. 12 men. 1 booth. 1 man at the center who didn't need to raise his voice to be heard across a room. Dante Caruso. 41. Sharp jaw. Sharper eyes. The kind of silence around him that money couldn't buy. Only fear could. He sat with one hand around a crystal glass of Barolo and the other resting flat on the white tablecloth. Relaxed, unhurried, as if the 6 armed men surrounding the perimeter of the room were furniture. He was the undisputed head of the Caruso Syndicate. 3 countries, 4 governments with his name buried in classified files. Men who ran cities answered his calls before the second ring. Tonight was supposed to be a negotiation. It already felt wrong. Across the room, near the service corridor, a young woman moved between shadows with a tray. Elena Vasquez, 28. Brown hair pulled back tight. Uniform 2 sizes too big. The kind of face people looked at and immediately forgot. That was intentional. She refilled water glasses without making eye contact, cleared plates without sound, moved like someone trained to disappear. The senior waiter Marco had called in sick tonight. Elena had been assigned last minute. The maitre d' barely remembered approving her. Nobody at that table looked at her once. That was a mistake. Dante swirled his wine. Across from him sat Enzo Martinelli, rival family, Northern Territories, new money trying to buy old respect. He smiled with too many teeth. "You're generous to meet me, Dante." "I'm curious," Dante said. "There's a difference." Enzo laughed. "Lean forward. We could end this Cold War tonight. Share the port routes. Both families walk away richer." Dante studied him the way a man studies a locked door, not to open it, but to understand what's behind it. "You brought 8 men," Dante said quietly. Enzo blinked. "Security. I counted them when I walked in." Dante set his glass down. "I only brought 4. A beat. That's either confidence," Dante said, "or a message." Enzo's smile didn't move, but his eyes shifted. Just barely. Just enough. Elena was at the far end of the room, refilling a breadbasket when she felt it. The temperature of the room changed. Not the air. Something underneath it. The specific stillness that settles before violence, like the second before a match strikes. She didn't look up, but her hand stopped moving. It happened in 4 seconds. The kitchen doors burst open. Not staff. 6 men in dark clothes, weapons already raised, moving with the precision of people who had rehearsed this exact entry in an exact room at an exact time. Dante's 4 guards were taken down before they cleared their holsters. Clean, coordinated, professional. Enzo stood up from the table, straightening his jacket. "Nothing personal, Dante." His voice had dropped all pretense. "Cold now. Final. The port routes aren't for sharing." Dante didn't flinch. He sat completely still, surrounded by 6 gun barrels, and looked at Enzo the way a man looks at something already dead. "You'll regret this." Dante said simply. Bold last words. Enzo nodded to the man nearest Dante. The gunman pressed the barrel to Dante's temple. Dante closed his eyes. One breath. The tray hit the floor. Nobody had been watching the waitress. Elena moved. Not the stumbling panic of a civilian. Not screaming. Not running. She crossed 8 meters of marble floor in the time it took the nearest gunman to turn his head. Her hand closed around the grip of Dante's own weapon, holstered at his ribs, jacket open. Before he processed what was happening, she didn't hesitate. She fired. The gunman at Dante's temple dropped. She was already moving, low, pivoting. 2 more shots, both controlled, both exact. 2 more men fell. 6 seconds. 3 gunmen down. 3 left standing. And for the first time all evening, the room was not in Enzo Martinelli's control. Silence. Dante Caruso stared at the woman holding his own gun. She didn't look at him. Her eyes were tracking the remaining 3 men, calculating, cold, completely focused. Her grip was textbook. Her stance was not something learned behind a restaurant counter. Who? Dante started. Not now. Her voice was quiet. Still, like she'd been waiting all evening to finally speak. There's a back exit through the cellar. We have 40 seconds before his men outside breach the front. Dante looked at her hands. Steady, not a tremor. He stood. You just fire my gun, he said. She finally looked at him. Just once. Direct. You weren't using it. Enzo took a step back toward the kitchen doors. Elena raised the weapon. Don't. One word. Absolute. Enzo froze. She held him there for exactly 3 seconds, long enough to make it clear she could, then grabbed Dante's arm and pulled. They ran. The cellar door slammed behind them. Above, the sound of Enzo's remaining men flooding the restaurant. Dante was breathing hard, not from fear, from something he hadn't felt in 15 years. Surprise. He looked at the woman running ahead of him through the dark corridor, his gun still in her hand, navigating the passage like she already knew where it ended. You've been here before, he said. She didn't answer. That was answer enough. The tunnel smelled like stone and old oak. Elena moved fast. No hesitation. No wrong turns. Dante noticed. You memorized this route, he said, keeping pace behind her. I memorize every route. Waitresses don't do that. She said nothing. The corridor split. Left or right. She went left without breaking stride. 20 meters ahead, a rusted iron door. She hit its shoulder first, and it swung open into cold Milan night air. A narrow alley. Dumpsters. One flickering streetlight. She stopped, pressed her back against the wall, checked both ends of the alley in one clean sweep. Dante watched her do it. That wasn't instinct. That was training. Give me my gun back, he said. She looked at him, considered it, then turned the weapon grip first and placed it in his hand. 4 rounds left, she said. Don't waste them. He took it, didn't holster it yet. Who are you? Someone who just saved your life. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting right now. She pulled out a burner phone. Already had a number dialed. Held it to her ear. 3 seconds. We need the secondary vehicle. Corner of Via Torino and Stratanova. 10 minutes. She ended the call. Dante stared at her. You had a secondary vehicle. I had 3. The silence between them was the kind that asks more questions than words can. Shouting. Behind the iron door. Enzo's men had found the cellar. Elena grabbed Dante's sleeve and pulled. He moved, not because she told him to, because she was already 3 steps ahead and standing still felt like dying. They ran. A black sedan, engine already running. No driver visible through the tinted glass. Elena pulled the rear door open. Dante got in. She followed. Door shut. The car moved immediately. Dante looked at the driver. Young. Mid-20s. Military posture. Friend of yours? Dante asked. Asset, Elena said. You have assets. Yes. In my city. She looked out the window. Apparently you needed them. Dante sat back, studied her profile in the passing streetlights. The uniform was gone. She'd stripped the outer layer somewhere in the corridor. Underneath, dark fitted clothing. Practical. No jewelry. No wasted material. She dressed for tonight. Not for waitressing. This was planned, Dante said. Not a question. My presence was planned. What happened inside? A slight pause. Parts of that were not. Which parts? The part where Enzo moved 2 hours earlier than expected. Her jaw tightened. Barely. Someone told him you'd be arriving late. Dante went very still. I told 3 people my schedule tonight, he said slowly. I know. He turned to look at her fully. Then you know more about my organization than you should. Yes. That should concern me. It should. She met his eyes. But right now, one of your 3 trusted men sold you to Enzo Martinelli tonight. That should concern you more. The car moved through empty streets. Milan at midnight. Beautiful and indifferent. Dante's mind was running the names. Rico, his enforcer, 15 years, loyal to a fault, or appeared to be. Salvatore, his consigliere, older, careful, the man who had helped build the Caruso empire from a failing loan operation to a continental syndicate. Marco, the waiter who called in sick tonight, the one whose absence put Elena in that restaurant. Dante's eyes moved to her slowly. Marco, he said. Elena's expression didn't change, but something behind her eyes shifted. Marco isn't a waiter, she said. No, he's been feeding Enzo's people your schedule for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Dante's hand tightened on the gun in his lap. How long have you known? Long enough. And you waited. His voice dropped. Dark now. The voice his enemies heard before things ended for them. You watched him do it, and you waited. I needed to trace the full network. Marco is a thread. I needed to follow it to the source. She paused. I still do. You used my life as bait. I was in that room. My life was bait too. A long silence. The car turned onto a private road. Industrial district. A warehouse with no markings. Where are we going? Dante asked. Safe house. Mine. Not connected to anything you own, which means Enzo can't find it. And I'm supposed to trust that. You trusted a man named Marco with your daily schedule. Her voice wasn't cruel, just precise. Your instincts need recalibrating. Dante looked at her for a long moment. Then, almost against his will, the corner of his mouth moved. Not a smile. Something smaller. Reluctant acknowledgement. She didn't return it. Inside was nothing like a warehouse. Clean. Efficient. Multiple screens mounted on one wall. Live feeds cycling through city cameras. A weapons locker. Secured. A medical kit. Cots. A small kitchen. This had been operational for weeks. Dante walked through it slowly, taking inventory the way he took inventory of everything, looking for the truth underneath the surface. How many people know this location? He asked. 2. Myself. And now you. Who's the second? She nodded at the driver, who had taken position near the entrance without being told. His name isn't important yet, she said. Everything is important to me. Then get used to not knowing everything. She moved to the screens, started pulling up camera feeds near Rosso Nero. Zooming. Tracking. Enzo will regroup. He failed tonight, which means he'll move fast to correct that. He has enough political cover to keep local police quiet for 6 hours. Maybe 8. Dante came to stand beside her. Not close, but close enough. He watched her work. Efficient. No wasted movement. Pulling data, cross-referencing, building a tactical picture in real time. Interpol, he asked quietly. She didn't answer. Military, he tried. Silence. You're not going to tell me. Not tonight. He studied the side of her face. The steadiness in her. The complete absence of performance. No showing off. No angling for his approval. She simply did what needed doing and expected nothing from him in return. It was, he thought distantly, the most unsettling thing he had encountered in 15 years of dealing with dangerous people. She pulled up a photograph on the central screen. A man, 60s, silver-haired, distinguished in the way of men whose money was old enough to have its own reputation. "Do you recognize him?" she asked. Dante looked. His expression changed. "That's Cardinal Petrov," he said carefully. "He has nothing to do with the Martinelli family. He has everything to do with it." Elena zoomed in on the background of the photograph. A meeting room. Around the table, Enzo Martinelli. 2 men Dante recognized as Enzo's senior lieutenants, and 3 others he didn't know. This photograph was taken 8 days ago. In Geneva. "Petrov is a financial intermediary," Dante said slowly. "He moves money for whoever pays him." "Yes." She pulled up wire transfers. Dates. Amounts. "He's been funding Enzo's expansion for 2 years. The port routes, the northern territories. Enzo didn't build that alone. He had backing. Significant backing." Dante stared at the screen. "Someone wants me removed," he said. "And they have enough reach to use a church official as a banker. They don't just want you removed." Elena's voice was flat. Factual. "They want the Caruso syndicate fractured and absorbed. Your territories. Your networks. Your people." A pause. "This isn't a rival family making a move. This is a coordinated corporate takeover. 18 months in the making." The room felt smaller suddenly. Dante pulled out a chair and sat down. For the first time all evening, he looked like a man processing something larger than himself. "You've been investigating this for 18 months, he said. She turned from the screen. Looked at him. "I've been investigating it for longer than that." Something in her tone. Dante caught it. Leaned forward slightly. "Why? What is this to you?" Her expression didn't change, but her eyes did. Something moved through them, old and deep and carefully contained. "That," she said quietly, "is a conversation for when we're not being hunted." The burner phone buzzed. She picked it up. Read the message. And for the first time since the restaurant, just for a second, something cracked in her composure. She set the phone down face up on the table. Dante read the screen. 3 words. "Marco is dead." Followed by a second message 2 minutes later. "They know about the girl." Dante looked up at her. She was already moving toward the weapons locker. "They burned their own asset," she said. Her voice was controlled, but beneath it, steel. "Marco told them enough before they killed him. They know someone was working against them from inside. They don't know who you are. They know what I look like." She turned. "They don't know my real name." Dante stood. "And what is your real name?" She looked at him across the room, weighing something privately, measuring how much truth the moment required. "My name tonight is Elena," she said finally. "And tomorrow," she zipped her jacket. "Ask me when we survive it." Outside, a sound. Low. Distant. Getting closer. Rotors. Dante moved to the window. In the sky over the industrial district, a helicopter. No markings. No lights. "They found us fast," he said. Petrov has city surveillance access. She was already heading for the back of the warehouse. I should have accounted for that. I didn't. That's on me. She said it simply. No self-destruction. No spiral. A clean acknowledgement of an error. An immediate pivot forward. Dante found himself moving after her without deciding to. At the back exit she stopped, turned to face him. In the dark, 3 feet apart, the helicopter getting louder, she looked at him with absolute directness. I know what you're thinking, she said. Do you? You're thinking that once we clear this building, you take the first opportunity to separate from me. Use your own network. Handle this your way. She tilted her head slightly. Don't. Give me a reason. Because your network has a leak you haven't found yet. And because what's coming, Petrov, the people behind him, your network isn't built for it. And you are. I was built for nothing else. The weight of that sentence landed between them, like something that had been waiting to be said. Dante looked at her. This woman who had appeared from nowhere, fired his gun better than most of his soldiers, and knew more about his enemies than he did. He didn't trust her, but distrust was a luxury. Survival was the only currency that mattered tonight. We do this together, he said, but I need one thing. What? No more half answers. If we're moving as one, we move as one. Everything. She searched his face, deciding. Then she nodded. Once. Everything, she agreed. When the time is right. That's still a half answer. It's the best one I have. The helicopter swept its beam across the warehouse roof. They ran. He had spent 15 years being the most dangerous man in any room. Tonight, he was running through the dark behind a woman whose name he didn't know. And the most unsettling part, he didn't want to be anywhere else. The rail yard was supposed to be Dante's territory. Empty now. Ghost territory. His own men cleared out by someone he trusted. They moved between freight cars. Steel and rust and silence. Elena set the pace. Dante matched it without complaint. Kov, the driver, moved rear guard, checking behind them every 4th step. Professional interval. Dante noticed that too. Salvatore, Dante said quietly while they moved. Elena glanced at him sideways. You already know, she said. I'm starting to. Ow! Because Rico and Marco, I could explain away. Salvatore is the only one who knew the full schedule. Time, location, backup route, everything. His jaw tightened. He's the only one who could have cleared this rail yard tonight, too. Elena said nothing for 3 seconds. Then, yes. One word. But the weight of it told him she had known for weeks and had been waiting for him to arrive there himself. He appreciated that, more than he expected to. Halfway through the yard, Elena stopped, held up one fist. Everyone froze. She tilted her head, listening to something beneath the wind. Then she pointed. 2 o'clock. Between 2 stationary freight cars. A figure. Standing. Waiting. Both hands visible. No weapon drawn. Dante looked and felt the ground shift beneath him. Salvatore. Alone. Standing in the rail yard he had emptied, as if he had known exactly where they would come through. Because he had. Dante stepped forward. Elena caught his arm, her grip firm. He's alone visibly. That doesn't mean he's alone. I know. He looked at her hand on his arm, then at her. But I need to hear from him. A beat. She released him. Kov, she said quietly. Kov peeled away into the shadows without a word. Flanking position. Invisible within 4 seconds. Dante walked towards Salvatore alone. The old man watched him come. His face carried no performance, no pretense of innocence. That more than anything told Dante the conversation would be real. They stopped 6 feet apart. How long? Dante asked. 2 years. Why? Not a question. A requirement. Salvatore looked at him for a long moment. And then something shifted in the old man's face. Not guilt. Older than guilt. Your father promised me something before he died, Salvatore said. He promised that when the empire was stable enough, we would step back. Legitimize. Move the family into clean business. Leave the war behind. A pause. You remember him saying that? I remember. You didn't do it. The time wasn't right. The time is never right for men like you, Dante. No anger. Just truth, tired from being carried too long. You became your father. And then you became more than your father. And the war never ended. It only grew. Salvatore's eyes were steady. I didn't betray you for Enzo Martinelli. I don't care about Enzo. Then who? For the chance to end it. Someone offered me a pathway. Structured transition. The Caruso territories absorbed into a larger organization. Clean money. Legal infrastructure. No more bodies. Petrov, Dante said. Salvatore blinked. Just once. You know about Petrov. I know enough. Dante took one step closer. His voice dropped. What you don't know is what Petrov actually is. What he actually wants. A pause. He doesn't want to legitimize the Caruso name. He wants to erase it. Absorb the network. Kill the leadership. And run the territories through proxies with no memory of the Caruso family. Another pause. Harder. He was using you, Salvatore. The way he uses everyone. You were just the cleanest tool he had. The old man stared at him. And for the first time, doubt moved across his face. Real doubt. The kind that dismantles a man's understanding of the last 2 years in one sentence. That's not what he... I know what he told you. Elena's voice. From behind Dante. She stepped forward out of the dark. Standing beside Dante now. Shoulder to shoulder. Salvatore looked at her. Confused at first. Then something shifted. A deeper recognition crawling slowly across his face. Pulling up something old and buried. He looked harder at her eyes. And went pale. You, Salvatore whispered. Hello, Salvatore, Elena said. Dante looked between them. You know each other. We've met. Once. A long time ago. Her eyes didn't leave the old man. He knew my father. The silence that followed had shape to it. Dante watched Salvatore's face cycle through something complicated and private. Shock first, then recognition. And underneath both, something that looked like grief that had been waiting a long time for permission to surface. Your father is dead, Salvatore said. Quietly, not cruelly. I know, Elena said. I was there. Dante looked at her and understood that the conversation for later had arrived ahead of schedule. Tell me, he said, just to her. Elena was quiet for a moment, looking at Salvatore. Then she turned slightly away from the old man, as if she needed to not see his face to say the next part cleanly. My father's name was Victor Vasquez, she said. He ran intelligence operations across Southern Europe for 15 years. Independent contractor. No government flag. He worked for whoever hired him, and he was the best at what he did. She paused. 18 months ago, he was hired to compile a dossier on Cardinal Petrov's financial network, mapping the offshore structures, the political connections, the criminal integrations. Another pause. Longer. He got too close. Compiled too much. Someone inside the network flagged his identity. Petrov had him killed, Dante said. Petrov had him killed. Flat. Final. A sentence she had said to herself 10,000 times and still couldn't make lighter. And then had the dossier buried. Every copy. Every contact. She paused. Except one. You. My father trained me from the time I could walk. I wasn't supposed to be operational. I was supposed to be his contingency. A pause. I became operational. Dante looked at her in the dark. At the woman who had appeared in his restaurant, saved his life, led him through the city, and built a 12-minute intelligence operation in a warehouse. Not a ghost. Not an agent, not a daughter. Running a one-woman war. The dossier, Dante said. You have it. I have everything my father assembled before they found him. And 18 months of my own work added to it. She finally looked at him directly. That's why I needed you alive tonight. Not just tonight. I need you still standing when I move against Petrov. Because what I have is enough to destroy him. But I can't deploy it alone. I need reach. Infrastructure. People who can move in spaces I can't. You need the Caruso Syndicate. I need its head. Her voice was measured. Alive. Functional. And finally aware of who his real enemy is. Dante held her gaze. You could have just told me this. Would you have believed a waitress who walked into your restaurant and said Cardinal Petrov is orchestrating your assassination, and I have the proof? A beat. No, he admitted. I needed you to see it. Experience it. Understand the scale through what happened tonight. She paused. I'm sorry I used you as bait. I'm not sorry it worked. The honesty of that landed squarely. He could have been angry. Part of him was. But he understood the architecture of what she'd done. And it was exactly what he would have done. A sound behind them. Kov's voice. Low and urgent. 4 vehicles. East entrance. 2 minutes. Salvatore closed his eyes. I called them, the old man said, before I came here. I thought he stopped. Shook his head slowly. I thought I was doing the right thing. Elena looked at him. No rage. Something more complicated than rage. You were always doing what you thought was right, she said. My father said that about you. A pause. He also said you were wrong twice as often as you knew. Salvatore flinched like she'd struck him. Then something else moved across his face. Slower. Heavier. Your father came to me, Salvatore said quietly. 3 weeks before he died. He told me what he had found on Petrov. He asked me if I knew anyone inside the Caruso network who could help him move the dossier safely. The rail yard went completely silent. Elena stared at him. He came to you, she said, very carefully. Yes. And Salvatore looked at the ground. I told him I needed time to think. I needed to consider the risks. His voice dropped to almost nothing. I took too long, and by the time I decided to help him, he was already gone. The old man looked up at Elena. His eyes were wet. I've been living with that every day since, he said. Every single day. Elena said nothing for a long moment. Dante watched her, the stillness in her, the way she processed it. Not exploding, not collapsing, just holding it, containing it. The way someone does when they have been carrying something so heavy for so long that even the worst additions to the weight feel somehow familiar. You couldn't have known what would happen, she said finally. I should have moved faster. Yes, she said. Simply, you should have. No absolution, no cruelty, just the truth placed between them and left there. Salvatore nodded once, accepting it. Headlights swept the eastern gate. Dante made a decision. Salvatore. The old man looked at him. You can stand here and wait for Petrov's people to arrive and find out what he does with tools he no longer needs. Where you can move. Where? With us. Dante said it like it cost him something. Because it did. There will be a reckoning between us. A real one. But not tonight. Salvatore looked at Dante. Then at Elena. Elena gave him nothing. No invitation. No rejection. Just waited. The old man straightened slowly. Something resolving in him. The specific posture of a person who has decided to stop running from the thing they did and start walking toward what it costs. Lead the way, he said. They went through a maintenance tunnel under the west fence. Low, cold, dark. Elena last. In the tunnel, on her hands and knees in the dirt. She let herself feel it for exactly 3 seconds. Her father walking into Salvatore's house, asking for help, the door almost opening, then closing. 3 weeks later gone. 3 seconds. Then she was through the other side, standing, moving, present. Her father had trained her for exactly this. Not just the fighting, not just the intelligence work, the getting back up. That most of all, on the street beyond the rail, yard Dante fell in a step beside her. Not behind her this time, beside her. She noticed. How much further? He asked. 4 blocks north. And then, she looked at him. And then we build something. You have a network. I have the intelligence. Together we have everything we need to walk into Petrov's world and dismantle it from the inside. You plan to partner with me from the beginning, he said. I plan to give you the choice. She met his eyes. You're choosing. A silence. The kind that meant something was being decided that couldn't be undecided. Partners, Dante said. Not warmly. Not coldly. Simply. She nodded. Simply. No handshake. No ceremony. Just 2 dangerous people moving in the same direction through a city that wanted them both dead. 3 blocks of silence between them. Then Dante, without looking at her. Your father. Was he good at this? A pause. The best I've ever seen, she said. Better than you? She considered the question with genuine seriousness. Ask me in a year, she said. He had spent 15 years being the most feared name in 3 countries. Tonight he had learned his empire had been sold beneath him by a man he loved like a father. Tonight he had learned his real enemy was a man he'd never considered an enemy. And tonight, walking 4 blocks through Milan beside a woman whose full name he still didn't know, he had stopped feeling like the most dangerous person in the room. Not because he had become less, but because for the first time, someone beside him was equal. And he found, to his considerable surprise, he didn't mind at all. 3 days passed, not quietly. In 72 hours they dismantled and rebuilt everything. Dante burned his compromised communication channels, rebuilt contact with 8 trusted lieutenants, men whose loyalty predated Salvatore's tenure, whose names never appeared in any document Salvatore could have accessed. Elena deployed the dossier, selectively, surgically, 3 packages to 3 separate journalists in 3 countries, held under embargo, timed to release simultaneously on a single trigger from her burner phone. A dead man's switch. Her father's design. She had simply inherited it and made it better. Salvatore sat in the corner of the safe house and answered every question they asked him. All of it. Petrov's contact methods, meeting locations, the full structure of the absorption plan, communication codes, emergency protocols, everything. He gave it without negotiation, without conditions, without asking what would happen to him afterward. An old man paying a debt he knew he could never fully clear. On the second night, Dante found Elena at the central screen at 3 a.m. Everyone else asleep. He set a cup of coffee beside her without a word. She looked at it, then at him. You don't strike me as someone who makes coffee for people, she said. I don't. He pulled up a chair. Saturday. That's the first time I've made it for anyone in about 11 years. She looked back at the screen, but something in her posture shifted. Marginally. The way a door shifts when it isn't locked anymore. You should sleep, she said. So should you. I don't sleep well in the middle of operations. Neither do I. A pause. Another thing we have in common. She glanced at him sideways. What's the first thing? Neither of us trusted the other, and neither of us left. a silence that had weight to it. She wrapped both hands around the coffee cup. My father used to say trust is just risk with a better name, she said quietly. Smart man. The smartest I knew. Her voice stayed even, but the word knew landed in the room with its full gravity. Dante didn't offer consolation, didn't reach for a platitude. He just sat with her in the 3 a.m. quiet and let her father's absence be real without trying to fix it. That, she thought, was the most unexpectedly decent thing he'd done. On the third morning, the intelligence confirmed what they needed. Cardinal Petrov was hosting a private symposium, legitimate cover, a financial ethics conference at the Palazzo Reale, Milan's most public venue. 300 attendees, press access, city officials, enough civilian presence to make it untouchable, or so Petrov believed. He thinks we're running, Elena said, studying the guest list. Enzo failed. His surveillance team lost us after the rail yard. He's calculated that we're regrouping and will make a move in 2 to 3 weeks. He's wrong, Dante said, by about 18 days. She looked up. We move tonight. Dante looked at the Palazzo Reale schematic spread across the table. 300 civilians, he said, which is why we're not bringing guns into the main hall. She pulled the schematic toward her. Petrov's private security, 16 men, personal guards inside with him, rest at perimeter and entry points. She traced the layout. He has one private meeting scheduled during the symposium. 8 p.m., third floor suite. Attendance, himself, 2 financial advisors, and Enzo Martinelli. Enzo will be there, Dante said. Enzo has nowhere else to go. He failed. He needs Petrov's protection, now more than Petrov needs him. She paused. That makes him unpredictable. Scared men always are. Their eyes met briefly. They both knew what scared men did. They had both seen it enough times to stop being surprised by it and start planning for it instead. Elena walked the plan through once. Clean. No repetition. Kov and 2 of Dante's lieutenants take the building's security system offline at 7:52 p.m., 8 minutes before the private meeting. Emergency lighting only on the 3rd floor. Controlled. Localized. Enough disruption to move without being tracked on internal cameras. Dante enters through press credential access, a name on the guest list that Salvatore had placed there 6 months ago before everything fell apart. Still valid. Never flagged. Elena goes in through the east service entrance, the same way she always entered rooms. Unseen. They converge on the 3rd floor at 8:01 p.m. And Petrov? Dante asked. Petrov answers for what he did to my father, in front of witnesses, with the dossier releasing publicly the moment we confirm he's contained. She paused. I want him alive. Dante looked at her. Most people in your position would want the opposite. Dead men become martyrs. Her voice was flat, certain. Exposed men become warnings. I don't want anyone to mourn him. I want everyone to see him. Dante studied her across the table. Your father taught you that, he said. My father taught me everything that matters, she said. There was one more thing. Elena looked at Salvatore across the room. The old man met her eyes. Waiting. Whatever she decided he would accept. He comes with us tonight, Elena said. Dante looked at her. Why? Because Petrov trusts him. If something goes wrong, if we need to voice Petrov, will actually open a door for her. Salvatore is that voice. She paused. And because he owes my father a debt, tonight he starts paying it. Salvatore straightened slowly. I won't fail this time, he said. No, Elena said quietly. You won't. Not a threat. Not forgiveness. Something in between. The specific tone of a person who has decided to use the past as fuel rather than a reason to stop moving. Dante pulled on his jacket, checked his weapon, looked across the table at Elena doing the same, efficient, unhurried, completely inside herself in the way of people who have learned to be still before violence, because stillness is what makes violence precise. After night, he said, "What do you want?" She looked up. "What do you mean?" "When Petrov is done, when the dossier is public, when the network starts collapsing." He held her gaze. "What do you want?" "For yourself." She was quiet for a moment. It was, she realized, the question nobody had asked her in 18 months. Everyone she had spoken to in that time had asked what she needed, what she knew, what she could do. Nobody had asked what she wanted. "I want to finish where my father started," she said carefully. "4 names remain. I want those 4 names to face what Petrov is about to face." A pause. "And after that?" She stopped. "You haven't thought past after that," Dante said. "I haven't let myself." He nodded slowly, understanding something about that which he didn't put into words. "Think past it," he said simply. "After tonight, start thinking past it." She looked at him for a moment, something moving in her eyes that she didn't name, and he didn't push. "We'll see," she said. She picked up her jacket. "Let's go end this." Palazzo Real, 7:49 p.m. The symposium was everything Petrov needed it to be. Chandeliers, champagne, 300 people who believed that financial ethics was being discussed in good faith by a man who had spent 20 years proving the opposite. Petrov worked the room like a diplomat, silver-haired, immaculate, unhurried, a smile that had convinced governments and buried inconvenient people in equal measure. He shook hands with a city councilor, accepted a glass of wine from a passing tray, laughed at something a senator said, a man entirely at ease, a man who did not know that somewhere in this building Victor Vasquez's daughter was already inside. Dante moved through the ground floor crowd with the ease of a man who had spent his entire adult life being the most dangerous person in a room full of important people. Press lanyard, dark suit. Nobody stopped him. Nobody questioned him. He reached the stairwell at 7:55 p.m. Elena's voice in his earpiece, low and clear. "East Service Corridor. 2nd floor. 30 seconds behind you. Security drops in 4 minutes." "Copy," he said quietly. A pause on her end. Then, almost surprised at herself, "Don't get shot before I get there." He almost smiled. "Likewise," he said. 3rd floor corridor. Empty. Emergency lighting dropping on schedule as Kov hit the relay. 8:01 p.m. Petrov's suite at the end of the hall. Double doors. 2 guards outside. Dante came from the north end. Elena came from the south, service door, silent, already moving before it fully opened. The 2 guards saw Dante first, started to react. Elena took the near one. Not a punch, not a weapon. A precise application of force to the pressure point at the base of the skull. Learned somewhere that was neither a gym nor a dojo. The man folded without a sound. Dante had the second one against the wall before the first hit the floor. One controlled impact. Down. For seconds. No shots fired. They looked at each other across 2 unconscious men. She tilted her head at the door. He tried the handle. Locked. She reached in her jacket and produced a key card. Salvatore's. Still active. Dante looked at it. Then at her. The look that said, "Of course you have that." She almost smiled. Almost. The door opened. 3 men looked up from a mahogany table. Cardinal Petrov. 2 financial advisors. No Enzo. Petrov's reaction was extraordinary in its stillness. He looked at Dante Caruso, standing in his doorway, and simply set down his pen, as if he had been expecting an interruption and was mildly inconvenienced by the timing. "Mr. Caruso," he said, "I wonder which direction you'd come from." "Did you wonder if I'd come at all?" Dante asked, stepping inside. "No." Petrov's eyes moved to Elena, and stopped. Something happened in his face. Not fear, recognition. And beneath the recognition, something older. The specific expression of a man confronting a consequence he had calculated as impossible. "Victor's daughter," he said softly. "In the flesh," Elena said. She closed the door behind them. The two advisors were on their feet. Elena looked at them once. Just once. The kind of look that communicates everything without saying anything. They sat back down. "Where's Enzo?" Dante asked. Mr. Martinelli had a change of heart about tonight's meeting. Petrov folded his hands on the table. Entirely composed. "He sends his regrets." "Where is he?" Dante said. Not the same question. Harder. "Somewhere in this building, I would imagine." Petrov tilted his head slightly. "He's been rather difficult to manage since Rossonero. Fear does that to men who are never quite as strong as they believe themselves to be." Elena crossed the room and placed both hands flat on the table in front of him. Close. Deliberate. Making him look at her directly whether he chose to or not. "I know everything," she said. "The offshore accounts. The political relationships. The 6 assassinations you commissioned in the last 3 years. The absorption plan for the Caruso territories. The name of the government official in Rome who runs your legal cover. The 4 names above you in the network that you report to." She paused. "All of it leaves my father's files and enters the hands of 3 major international press organizations in," she checked her watch, 11 minutes. Petrov looked at her steadily. "Unless," he said. "No unless." Her voice was absolute. "There is no negotiation. There is no deal." She straightened. "I'm not here to bargain with you. I'm here so you know who did this. I'm here so the last thing that happens before your world ends is that you look at Victor Vasquez's daughter and understand that he finished the job." The room was silent. Petrov held her gaze for a long moment. Something moved behind his eyes. Not fear even now, but something adjacent to it. The dawning recognition of a man who has spent decades controlling every variable, discovering that one variable he dismissed entirely has been the one that mattered most. "Your father," he said quietly, "was remarkable. Genuinely. I want you to know I took no pleasure in what was necessary." "I know you didn't," Elena said. "That's almost worse." She held his gaze for 3 more seconds, then stepped back. Done with him. Already past him. The way her father had taught her. Don't linger on what's already finished. Move to what's next. She turned to Dante. "Call it in." Dante reached for his phone. The suite doors burst open. Not 2 guards. 6. Moving fast and coordinated. Petrov's inner security. The ones kept off the official manifest. The ones nobody outside this building knew existed. And behind them, Enzo Martinelli. Not gone. Not hiding somewhere in the building. Waiting. In the adjacent room. Listening through the wall. His eyes were bright with the desperate energy of a man who has calculated that attack is the only remaining option because everything else has already been taken from him. "You ran the same play twice," Enzo said. He had a gun in his hand. Voice tight. Controlled on the surface and coming apart beneath it. "Walk into the room. Take control. You did it at Rossonero. You did it here." He looked at Elena specifically. Something between fury and something uglier. "Did you think I wouldn't prepare for you this time?" "I thought you'd run," Elena said honestly. "I don't have anywhere left to run." He moved further into the room. The 6 guards spread to cover both Dante and Elena simultaneously. A practice formation. "So, here we are." Petrov looked at Enzo, and something shifted in the old man's face, not gratitude. Calculation. The specific expression of a man deciding in real time whether a tool that has just made itself useful again is worth keeping. Elena saw it, filed it, used it. "Enzo," she said. He looked at her. "He's deciding right now whether to have you killed after this," she said. Flat. Factual. Look at his face. You know that expression. You've seen it before, on every person who ever used you and then stopped needing you. Enzo's eyes cut to Petrov. Petrov's expression had smoothed back into composure. Too quickly, too deliberately. Something moved through Enzo. A fracture. Small but real. Elena pressed it. He let you fail at Rosso Nero, she said. He had the resources to reinforce you that night, and he didn't. Because a living Enzo Martinelli who failed is a liability. A dead one is a clean ending. She paused. He was hoping Dante's people would do it for him. That's enough, Petrov said sharply. The sharpness was a mistake. It confirmed everything. Enzo stared at Petrov, and in the silence of that stare, the room changed. Not dramatically, not with a speech or a confrontation. Just a man quietly removing his loyalty from a person who had never deserved it, and feeling the specific cold clarity of someone who has finally stopped lying to himself. He lowered his weapon, not toward Elena, not toward Dante. He turned it toward Petrov. The accounts, Enzo said. His voice was very quiet now. The ones you told me were mine. They're not mine, are they? Petrov said nothing. Are they? This isn't the time. They were never mine. Enzo laughed. Short. Hollow. The laugh of a man who has just understood a very long joke at his own expense. 2 years. Everything I did. And you were going to take it all and leave me with nothing. He looked at Elena. How long have you known? Since I started, she said. It's in the dossier. Enzo nodded slowly. Processing. Then he looked at his 6 guards. Stand down, he said. 2 of them hesitated. Looked at Petrov. The other 4 lowered their weapons immediately. Reading the room. Choosing survival over loyalty to a man whose authority had just visibly collapsed. The 2 who hesitated read their colleague's decision and followed. The room locked into stillness. Dante moved then. Smooth. Unhurried. The walk of a man who has just watched chaos resolve itself and is stepping into the space it left behind. He stopped in front of Petrov. It's done, Dante said simply. Petrov looked at him, then at Elena, then at the room, his guard standing down. Enzo turned against him. The 2 advisors pressed against the wall, wanting no part of any of it. He had built 20 years of untouchability on the assumption that the right combination of money, influence, and strategic elimination of threats would make him permanent. He had not accounted for a dead man's daughter and the Mafia boss she had decided to keep alive. Dante reached into his jacket pocket, produced his phone, turned the screen toward Petrov. A live feed. Outside the Palazzo reel. A press van. A journalist speaking to camera. And at the bottom of the screen, a news ticker already running. Breaking. Cardinal Petrov financial documents leaked to international press. Alleged ties to organized crime and political corruption across 3 countries. European authorities launching a media inquiry. Petrov stared at the screen. 8 minutes early. Elena said quietly from across the room. My father always said, if the timing matters, move before they expect you to. Petrov looked at the screen for a long time. The composure didn't shatter. It was too old and too practiced for that. But it cracked. A hairline fracture running through 20 years of carefully constructed invulnerability. He looked at Elena. Your father will be proud, he said, quietly. And unlike everything else he had said tonight, this had no agenda behind it. Just a true thing said by a man who had nothing left to protect. I know, she said. She turned away from him. Done. Dante made the calls. Europol contact, one of 3 clean law enforcement relationships Elena had identified in the dossier, was on the phone within 60 seconds. 2 of Dante's lieutenants entered the floor 2 minutes after that. Petrov was read his rights in 4 languages. He didn't struggle, didn't plead. He sat in the chair with his hands folded and waited with the dignity of a man who had decided that if this was the ending, he would meet it without performance. Elena watched them take him from the room. She felt, not triumph, something quieter than triumph. The specific exhaustion and relief of a person who has been holding something very heavy for a very long time and has just been allowed to set it down. Enzo sat in the corner of the room. He looked diminished, not physically, but the thing that had animated him, the ambition and the fear and the desperate forward momentum, had gone out of him like air from a punctured tire. Elena crouched in front of him. He looked at her, expecting judgment, expecting punishment. "Everything you know about the 4 names above Petrov," she said. "Accounts, locations, communication channels, anything. You give it all to me. Tonight. And in return you're a non in the dossier as a principal. You are a footnote. A pause. You walk away from Milan. From Italy. You disappear into whatever life you can build somewhere quiet. And you never come back." Enzo looked at her for a long moment. "That's more than I deserve," he said. "Yes," she agreed. "It is. But it's what I need from you, and it's what I'm offering." "So?" He nodded. "Everything," he said. "Start talking." In the corridor outside the suite, Dante found her standing at the window 20 minutes later, looking down at the Palazzo Reale courtyard below, where press had gathered and law enforcement vehicles were beginning to pulse blue through the Milan night. He came to stand beside her, the same distance as always. Not close, not far. The particular proximity of 2 people who had stopped pretending indifference without yet deciding what to do about its absence. "It's done," he said. "This part," she said. "The 4 names. Enzo gave me 2 tonight. Good ones. Actionable within weeks." She watched the courtyard. "The other 2 months. Maybe more. We have time," Dante said. She glanced at him, the word "we" landing between them, without either of them acknowledging it directly. "Petrov had 12 layers above him," she said. "People who used him the way he used Enzo. The dossier reaches 8 of them tonight. The rest is workable," Dante said, echoing her word from 3 days ago. Deliberately. She recognized it, almost smiled. "With the right infrastructure," she said, "and the right intelligence." Below them, Milan erupted into the controlled chaos of a major scandal breaking simultaneously across every screen in 3 countries. Victor Vasquez's work, finally reaching the world. 18 months late, exactly on time. Dante looked at his hands briefly, then out at the city. "I owe you an acknowledgement," he said. She glanced at him. "You walked into my world and knew more about it than I did. You saved my life. You ran this entire operation from the inside out." He paused. "And you never once asked me to say thank you." "I didn't do it for thank you." "I know." Another pause. The kind where what's being said lives underneath the words. "That's why I'm saying it." She was quiet for a moment, looking at the city. "You gave me reach," she said finally. "Infrastructure. People who could move where I couldn't. A name that opened doors I couldn't open alone." A pause. "We saved each other. Is that what happened?" She met his eyes. And this time, unlike the restaurant, unlike the cellar, unlike every moment before this one, she didn't look away first. "Yes," she said. "That's exactly what happened." The night had turned into something historic. 3 international press outlets running simultaneously. Europol on the ground. 2 government officials already unreachable by phone, which meant they were already running, which meant the dossier had found exactly the nerves it was designed to find. Victor Vasquez had built a weapon. His daughter had fired it. Dante's lieutenants handled the logistics. Quietly. Efficiently. The way his people worked when he was present. Not because he demanded it, but because his presence raised the standard of every room he entered simply by existing in it. Elena watched them work from a distance. She had spent 18 months operating alone. No team, no infrastructure, just herself, Kav, and the ghost of her father's methodology. This was different. She searched for the word and found it reluctantly. Support. She wasn't sure she knew how to use it yet. Kav appeared beside her. He handed her a phone. Her real phone, not a burner. She looked at it. "It's safe now," he said. "I swept it." She took it, turned it over in her hands. The last time she'd used this phone, her father had been alive. She kept it off for 18 months. Couldn't bring herself to delete what was in it. Couldn't bring herself to turn it on. She turned it on now. 40 seconds to load. 41 unread messages. Most from numbers she burned. 2 from journalists her father trusted. Several from unknown numbers that were almost certainly Petrov's people trying to locate her in those first terrifying weeks. And one, sent 18 months ago, 4 hours before Victor Vasquez was killed, from her father. She stared at it, didn't open it. Not here, not with people around, not with the noise of consequence still filling every corridor of this building. She put the phone in her pocket and breathed through it. Later. She would open it later. Her father had taught her sequencing. First things first. Always. At 11 p.m., the building had been processed enough for them to leave. Petrov was in custody. The 2 financial advisors were cooperating fully with the speed of men who had been waiting for an exit from a situation they had never fully chosen. Enzo had given Elena 3 hours of detailed testimony and was currently being moved to a location outside Italy under arrangements Dante had made with 2 phone calls. Salvatore had spent the entire operation in the corridor outside Petrov's suite. Not inside, not part of the action. He had been there if needed and had not been needed. He stood now near the stairwell, waiting for what he didn't know. That, Elena thought, was probably appropriate. Dante found her before she found him. He appeared beside her the way he had developed a habit of doing. Not announced, not dramatic, simply present. As if proximity to her had become a natural state, he'd stopped questioning. "Salvatore," he said. Not a question. An item on a list that needed addressing before they left. "Yes," she said. They walked toward the old man together. Salvatore watched them come. His hands were at his sides. His face was the face of a man who has made his peace with uncertainty and is simply waiting for the world to tell him what comes next. Dante stopped in front of him. A long silence. "You built half of what I have," Dante said finally. "You sat at my father's table before I was old enough to sit at it myself. You were at his funeral. You were at mine. Every version of it. Every time someone tried to put me in the ground before my time." A pause. "And you spent 2 years dismantling it from the inside because you decided you knew better than I did what the Caruso name should become." Salvatore held his gaze. "Yes. I could have you killed for that," Dante said. "There are men in my organization who would consider it the appropriate response. The required one." "I know," Salvatore said. "But you came to the rail yard. You could have run. You had enough warning, enough resources. You came and you stood there and you waited for us." Dante paused. "Why?" "Because running would have been the final cowardice," Salvatore said. "I have been a coward once already. With Victor. I wasn't going to do it again." The name landed in the space between all 3 of them. Dante looked at Elena. She was looking at Salvatore. her expression unreadable in the way that it stopped meaning cold and started meaning she was deciding something important. "He told you he forgives you," she said to Salvatore. "Not for what you did to Dante. That's Dante's to give or withhold." She paused. "I'm telling you that what you did tonight, what you gave us in that safe house, every piece of information, the testimony, standing in that corridor for 3 hours in case we needed you, that goes into the account." She held his gaze. "It doesn't clear it, but it goes in." Salvatore closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, they were wet. He didn't apologize for that. "What happens now?" he said. Dante looked at him for a long moment. The weight of 15 years and a betrayal and a lifetime before the betrayal, all present simultaneously in the silence. "Now you retire," Dante said. "Completely. Permanently. You go somewhere quiet, and you stay there, and you think about my father every day, and you think about Victor Vasquez every day, and you live with both of those things for whatever time you have left." A pause. "And if I ever need you, for testimony, for information, for anything, you answer the phone. That's all. That's everything," Dante said. Salvatore nodded once. The nod of a man accepting a sentence that is more merciful than he deserves, and less than he hoped for, and exactly right. He looked at Elena one last time. She gave him a small nod. Not warm, not cold. An acknowledgement. The bare minimum of one human being recognizing another. It was, she thought, what her father would have done. They left the Palazzo Reale at 11:43 p.m. Milan was awake around them in a way cities only get when something seismic has happened. That particular electric energy of a place processing its own transformation. News vans and phone screens, and people on corners talking in clusters. The city rewriting its own story in real time. They walked, not to a vehicle, not toward any destination. Just walked, side by side through streets that were filling with the noise of consequence. Neither of them spoke for 3 blocks. Then Elena stopped. They were on a small bridge over a canal. Below them the water reflected the city's lights in long broken lines. Above them the sky was clearing, the clouds that had covered Milan all week finally pulling back to show stars that had been there all along. She took out her phone. Dante stopped beside her, looked at the phone, understood. He said nothing. She opened the message. Her father's voice filled the small speaker. She turned the volume down instinctively, not because she was ashamed of it, but because this was private. This was only for her, and the world had already taken enough of Victor Vasquez without taking this too. She listened. Dante watched the canal. He didn't watch her face, didn't observe her reaction, gave her the privacy of his genuine inattention, present but not watching, there but not intruding. When the message ended, she stood very still for a moment. Then she put the phone away. "He said to find people worth trusting," she said. Her voice was steady. Something behind it was not steady, and she wasn't pretending otherwise. "He said it looks different than you expect." Dante looked at her. And he said, "Don't let the work become the only thing." She looked at the water. He said that was his mistake. A silence. Was it? Dante asked. His mistake. She considered it honestly. "Partly," she said. "He loved the work. But he loved me more. He just—" She stopped. "He just didn't always know how to do both at the same time." "Most people don't," Dante said. She looked at him sideways. "Is that your way of saying you understand it personally?" "It's my way of saying I've made the same mistake." He looked at the water. The work becomes the world. Everything else becomes secondary. And one day you look up and the secondary things are gone, and the work is all that's left, and you realize, too late usually, that the work was never the point. She was quiet for a moment. What was the point? She asked. He looked at her. I'm starting to think I'm figuring that out, he said. The honesty of that landed between them softly, not dramatically, not with the weight of declaration. Just a true thing said quietly on a bridge over a canal in a city that was rewriting itself below them. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she reached out, not reaching for him, just her hand open, at her side, extended slightly toward his. An offer. Simple, unadorned. He looked at it. Then he put his hand in hers. Not a handshake, not a partnership agreement, not a moment designed for anyone but the two people standing on the bridge. Just this, just present. Two people who had walked through the same fire, choosing, freely, fully, without negotiation, to walk out of it together. 6 weeks later, the name on the organizational briefing document had changed. Not Dante Caruso, director. Not Elena Vasquez, director. Two names. Same line. Same font size. Same weight. The 12 people sitting around the table had taken exactly 4 seconds to process this when they arrived. Some had questions behind their eyes. None asked them out loud, because the two people sitting at the head of that table had the particular stillness of people who have been through things and come out carrying them cleanly. And that stillness did not create a space where small questions felt worth asking. Elena opened the briefing. For names, she said. 2 confirmed through Enzo's testimony. 2 near confirmed through the dossier. Here's what we know. Here's what we need. Here's how we move. She spoke for 11 minutes. No deference. No performance. Precise, direct, complete. When she finished, Dante added 3 operational points she hadn't covered. She listened, noted 2 of them, pushed back on 1. He reconsidered the one she pushed back on, changed it. Nobody in the room said anything about that, because it was simply how this worked now. After the briefing, the room cleared. Dante and Elena stayed, the way they had developed a habit of staying, letting the room empty, letting the operational noise settle, finding the quiet on the other side of it together. He poured 2 glasses of water, set one in front of her. She picked it up, looked at him. You were right about the Eastern approach, she said. I should have included it. You would have gotten there, he said. I got there faster because you were in the room. He looked at her. This was not something she said easily. He understood that. That goes both ways, he said. She nodded, accepting it, not deflecting it. That, he thought, was new. 6 weeks ago, she would have deflected it. 6 weeks was enough time, barely, to begin learning how to receive something without immediately converting it into a tactical calculation. He was learning things too. How to share authority without feeling it as diminishment. How to be corrected without it triggering the defensive machinery of 15 years of final say. How to sit across from someone who was his equal in every room they entered and feel that not as threat, but as something he didn't have a word for yet. Something good. Something he hadn't expected. She looked out the window at Milan below them. My father's dossier, she said. The original. The physical copy he kept. A pause. I want to put it somewhere permanent. Archived. Attributed to him properly. She looked at Dante. His name on the work he did. I'll have it done, Dante said. I'm not asking you to do it for me. I know. He held her gaze. I'm telling you I want it. Because it matters. Because he matters. A pause. Because you matter. She held his gaze for a long moment. 3 months ago, she had walked into a restaurant as nobody, had moved through a room full of powerful men like furniture, had been so invisible that not one person at that table had looked at her once. She had built that invisibility deliberately, had worn it like armor, had told herself it was strategy when sometimes, honestly, it had also been easier than being seen. Being seen meant being known. Being known meant being vulnerable. Being vulnerable meant the work could be taken from you. Or the people. She had lost her father. She had made herself invisible so she would never lose anything again. And then a man had sat in a restaurant surrounded by gun barrels and closed his eyes, and she had decided, in the space of one breath, that she was done being invisible. Not for him. Not yet. For her father. For the work. For herself. And somewhere in the months since, in the safe houses and the rail yards, and the 3 a.m. coffees and the canal bridge, and the briefings and the arguments, and the slow, careful construction of something she hadn't allowed herself to want. She had stopped being invisible, not because someone had found her, because she had decided to be found. She looked at Dante. He would have had opinions about you, she said. The same thing she'd said weeks ago on the night everything ended and everything began. You said that before, Dante said. Good or bad? Both, she said, loudly. The real smile this time. Full. Unguarded. He would have tested you. Pushed you. Tried to find a place where you broke. She paused. And when you didn't break, he would have respected you enormously and never told you directly. I would have liked him, Dante said. Yes, she said. You would have. She said it simply, without grief, without the weight of loss coiling around the words the way it had for 18 months. Just a true thing. Her father would have liked this man. Her father would have been glad his daughter was not alone. Outside the window, Milan moved through its afternoon with the comfortable indifference of a city that has survived scandals and empires and centuries of powerful men who believe themselves permanent. Below them somewhere, in files and servers and courtroom preparations, Cardinal Petrov's world was being systematically dismantled piece by piece. 4 names remained. They would not remain for long. But that was tomorrow. Today was this. A room. 2 people. The afternoon light. The particular peace of those who have been at war so long that peace itself feels new. Not uncomfortable, just new. Something to be learned slowly, carefully, with the same attention they had given to everything else that mattered. She stood, picked up her jacket. Dinner tonight, she said. Not a question, a statement. Not Rosso Nero, Dante said. She almost laughed. Almost. No, she said. Not Rosso Nero. She walked toward the door. Stopped. Turned back. Dante. He looked at her. Thank you, she said, for choosing. He held her gaze. Thank you, he said, for giving me the choice. She nodded once. Then she walked out. He sat for a moment in the quiet she left behind, in the room that still held the shape of her presence, in the life that looked, after 15 years of being exactly one thing, like it was becoming something larger, something worth the fire it had taken to reach it. She had walked into a restaurant as nobody. She had walked out of it as the woman who had changed everything. She had not asked for recognition. She had not waited for permission. She had simply looked at a room full of powerful men who had decided she was invisible, and proved that the most dangerous person in any room is not the one with the most power. It is the one with the most purpose. And she had never, not for one single moment, lost sight of hers. The most underestimated person in the room is not invisible because they have nothing. They are invisible because they are waiting. And when they stop waiting, there is nothing in the world more unstoppable Elena Vasquez. Now the question is yours. If you stopped waiting to be seen, if you walked into the room and refused to be invisible, what would you be capable of? Part 2 awaits. Elena has 2 names left, and the people who bear those names have no idea. She is coming. She walked in as a waitress. She left as the most dangerous person in the room. If this story hit different, like, comment, share, asterisk, and subscribe to our channel to help us grow and bring you part 2. Because Elena isn't done yet. We'll see you there.